Hi everyone, it's time for me to make a start on making a personal journal. So I thought I'd bring you along for the ride and show you what I do when I put my journal together. There's a couple of things I have to do to make sure that I get the journal done, because sometimes we can procrastinate a little bit and be a bit too fussy in what we include. So when I need a personal journal, it's got to be quick because I use journals daily. I usually do them in traveler's notebook size, which is something like this. So these are signatures from my personal journal, and you can see there I've used the Truly Blue kit from RachandBella Crafts. And then what I do is I do several of these signatures, and then once they're finished I will bind them and put them in its own cover and bind them, and then the journal is finished. This time round I'm thinking of giving an A5 journal a go. I haven't made myself an A5 journal in, oh gosh, it's got to be a couple of years now, because I always go for the traveller's notebook style, because it's usually easier to carry. But really I'm not carrying my journals around much. It's only twice a week when I go into the office. I'm going to be using the Nana's Roses kit. So I've printed, on one side I've printed all the pages, absolutely gorgeous. So this is Nana's Roses kit from RachandBella Crafts. I've got some tea-dyed paper here, and this paper is 80 GSM and it was cream when I started. So when you dye it you get this sort of lovely yellowish tinge to it. I really like this colour because it's great for writing on. And then I've got some more pages here then that I've just tea-dyed the back, printed on one side, and I've just washed them out a little bit. So that's what I'm going to use. May add some other pages in there as well, but predominantly I make this journal to write in, so it has very little pockets. I usually only put pockets on the signature cover. I don't know if I've got one here actually. Oh, there we are. So yeah, so I'll just put a pocket on either side there, like that. And then I'll just embellish the page edges and the fronts of the signature covers. So I'm going to go and make this, and I'll do it in stages, and then hopefully you can follow me along as I get my journal ready. One other thing to mention, the journal cover, I don't normally think about it at this stage, because I will put my signatures in a leather cover while I'm writing in them, but I found this as I was doing my recycling this morning, and it's just a cutout box from IKEA. Oh, there you are. It's one of their lamps. So I'm going to use this as my journal cover, so I should be able to fit quite a few signatures in there. I have no idea what I'm going to do with the cover, what I'm going to put on it, whether I'll use a kit, some paper, whether I'll use material. I guess it depends on how the journal progresses as I use it, and that's what I like about doing this, is that I don't have to make the decisions right now. The most important thing is just putting the signatures together and getting them ready for me to write in, and I'm going to need this next week, so I've really got to get my skates on. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial as I go through the stages, and please let me know what you think. So for some reason my microphone decided not to work during this stage. So here I am looking at some pages that I've got. I've put some very basic pages together. I've got a book page. I've got some messy, scrappy paper that I've just covered with paint. Some tea-dyed paper with that I've used. I think that's 80 GSM, and I've got the digital kits from RachandBella Crafts, the Nana Roses, and I've also got some lined paper there. Now, one of the reasons why I am only going to sew in the middle is because it does get damaged during the use of the leather cover. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to put my signatures together, and I'm going to do this extremely loosely, just going to gather about 5 or 6 pages for each signature and loosely fold them together, and as you can see, just very, very loosely putting these together. And then I'm going to speed up the camera a little bit just to give you an idea of what I'm doing. And I'm putting 4 signatures together here. And here are the 4 signatures. And what I really want to do now is have a look at what they're looking like. I'm quite happy with the front covers, which will be the signature covers. I'm going to use this piece of cardboard here, and I'm just checking the size of the signatures against the intended cover, and hopefully that'll work out just fine. And I'm just going to fold this little piece that's hanging over here in so that it doesn't protrude too much. And I'm really not bothered about the lines going vertically instead of horizontally. I quite like writing on quirky paper like that. Just going to move some pages around now, and I'm really happy with the way these are looking. So what I'm going to do now is take them over to the sewing machine, and before I do that, I'm just going to have a quick look at them just to make sure that they're all in the right position. I may move some here and there. I'm not too fussy about this stage, so get through it really quickly. And there you go, my signatures are ready, and then I'm just going to pop over to the sewing machine. Okay, I've sewn my signatures in, and well, sewn my signatures together, I should say, and you can see that I've only sewn them in the middle. And there's lots of other ways that you could do this. You could sew it loosely with some wax thread, or as I think my hand gestures will show there, you could maybe use a stapler if you've got a stapler with a long arm. It's really up to you. I just like having the signatures put together because I'm using both sides of the signatures I write. Now, as what I'm showing you here is, you can see on my existing signatures, they've started to fray a little where they're being held in the leather journal. I should have really added some cloth or some fabric to the spine to strengthen it, but of course I want this to be quick. So that's why I didn't do it, and regretting it now. So these are the 2 A5 journal covers that I've got. This one's from Start Bay Notebooks, and I'll put a link below for you to their shop. It's absolutely lush. I love it. The elastic is nice and thin in it, and you can buy lots of charms. This one is from Amazon, and I think it was about £20 or £25, and you can buy all different sizes in this, and it's got lovely pockets. The elastic is very thick, which I'm not too keen on, but it'll be fine for these signatures because I've only loosely bound them. So I'm just going to pop them in the journal now, and you can see at the top there it is slightly tight, and if I'd sewn all the way from the top to the bottom, that would eventually rip with use. So I'm going to quickly put these in just to see what it looks like and see if I've got enough signatures. And about 4 signatures and 5 to 6 pages each is really enough for me, which will probably last me about maybe just less than a month or so. And that's great because I usually like to work on the kits that I'm making journals for my design team projects. It just helps to get immersed in the digital kit, and I get some ideas then as I'm doing my daily journaling. And so that I'm really happy with the way that looks. I love the front cover there, and actually I don't think I really need to do much to it at all. You can see I've got lots of scrappy paper in there. I just like to use a selection of paper that I've got in my stash. You can see on here, on my existing journal covers, I've just added some simple trim, which I'll probably go ahead and do on these. And I've embellished some of the signature covers. And as I've been making my design team projects, I've used some clusters as well. You can see I've used clusters on the side there, and I tend to do that as I'm journaling, or I might maybe do 2 or 3 pages at a time and then add them in before I write. There's really no rhyme or reason on how I do it. I just like to be flexible when I'm doing my daily journaling. And as I flick through these signatures, you can see that I've got some pages with pretty much ugly letterheads, so I'll need to get rid of those. I could cut them or rip them, but I'll probably do some kind of snippet strips, which I'll show you a little bit later, and tie that into the digital kit that I'm using, which is, of course, Nana's Roses. Hi everyone, it's time for me to make a start on making a personal journal. So I thought I'd bring you along for the ride and show you what I do when I put my journal together. There's a couple of things I have to do to make sure that I get the journal done, because sometimes we can procrastinate a little bit and be a bit too fussy in what we include. So when I need a personal journal, it's got to be quick because I use journals daily. I usually do them in traveller's notebook size, which is something like this. So these are signatures from my personal journal, and you can see there I've used the Truly Blue kit from RachandBella Crafts. And then what I do is I do several of these signatures, and then once they're finished I will bind them and put them in its own cover and bind them, and then the journal is finished. This time round I'm thinking of giving an A5 journal a go. I haven't made myself an A5 journal in, oh gosh, it's got to be a couple of years now, because I always go for the traveller's notebook style, because it's usually easier to carry. But really I'm not carrying my journals around much. It's only twice a week when I go into the office. I'm going to be using the Nana's Roses kit. So I've printed, on one side I've printed all the pages, absolutely gorgeous. So this is Nana's Roses kit from RachandBella Crafts. I've got some tea-dyed paper here, and this paper is 80 GSM and it was cream when I started. So when you dye it you get this sort of lovely yellowish tinge to it. I really like this colour because it's great for writing on. And then I've got some more pages here then that I've just tea-dyed the back, printed on one side, and I've just washed them out a little bit. So that's what I'm going to use. May add some other pages in there as well, but predominantly I make this journal to write in, so it has very little pockets. I usually only put pockets on the signature cover. I don't know if I've got one here actually. Oh, there we are. So yeah, so I'll just put a pocket on either side there, like that. And then I'll just embellish the page edges and the fronts of the signature covers. So I'm going to go make this, and I'll do it in stages, and then hopefully you can follow me along as I get my journal ready. One other thing to mention, the journal cover, I don't normally think about it at this stage, because I will put my signatures in a leather cover while I'm writing in them, but I found this as I was doing my recycling this morning, and it's just a cutout box from IKEA. Oh, there you are. It's one of their lamps. So I'm going to use this as my journal cover, so I should be able to fit quite a few signatures in there. I have no idea what I'm going to do with the cover, what I'm going to put on it, whether I'll use a kit, some paper, whether I'll use material. I guess it depends on how the journal progresses as I use it, and that's what I like about doing this, is that I don't have to make the decisions right now. The most important thing is just putting the signatures together and getting them ready for me to write in, and I'm going to need this next week, so I've really got to get my skates on. So I hope you enjoy this tutorial as I go through the stages, and please let me know what you think. So if you're anything like me, you have got a ton of these scraps, and these I picked out from a big box of scraps, and they're sort of neutral, and I want to use them in a way that is quick and easy. You don't have to think about it, and basically you can use it for lots of projects. So what we're going to do is we're going to make some masterboards, but we're not going to make them in the traditional sense. We are going to make them in strips. So what I got here is a A3 sheet of tea-dye paper. Now you can use any type of paper, and you can use any size, whatever you've got. You could use old cardstock you don't like. I want to use this because I want this backing on the back of the strips, and it's quite strong, but at the same time it's lightweight. But use what you have in your stash. You could also use packaging paper, where you get, you know, wherever you get your stationery supplies. That works really great for these. So the first thing I am going to do is I am going to measure a strip that would look okay as the size of a tag, because that is what I usually use the most with my masterboards. So that looks about right, and that is 2, 4, 6, 8. So that's about 9 centimeters, and 9 centimeters is about 3.5 inches. So I'm gonna do the first one. I'm just gonna rip it, and then I will use this piece to cut the rest. So you can see that these are quite scrappy, and they really do suit projects that are fairly on the grungy side, which is the majority of my projects. But you can certainly dress these up with the likes of labels, digital kits, and stickers and fabric, and certainly make them look less grungy if you so wish. And we'll have a look at that at the end. We'll have a look at an example where I have actually done that at the end. So there we go. We've got 4 strips of paper. Now it's up to you at this stage whether you want to do 4 separate strips and keep them separate and just lay them flat, or what you can do is you can join them, and you can make it as you go along, or you can what I'm going to do is I'm going to make them separately but then join them at the end. But you know, it doesn't really matter which way you do it. It all depends on what you're going to use them for and how you're going to store them. We'll be back in a tick with all the scraps together. So while my other strip is drying, I've got some more here that I prepared earlier. And again, I've used just so many different bits and bobs. Haven't tried to follow any theme. I've just tried to keep it fairly neutral with some nice spaces to do some stamping on, if that is what suits the project. Again, I've used tea stained paper, and you can tell it's tea because here you can see where the tea bags, that I laid the tea bags on top of the paper. So that's what I've done. Right, so the next thing you need to do is trim your edges off. So you can cut them, you can put them in your guillotine. I am just going to straighten them off with my rather large craft knife. Okay, so on the bottom of each one you can see there that I've left a bit of space to glue them down. Now I can see here that I've got some bits that are coming off, which is perfectly normal, so I'll just use my glue stick there. And you could use any type of wet glue that you've got to glue these down. I might actually use my scissors here just to trim a little tiny bits off, which will annoy me. Okay, so we've got here now 4 strips of paper, and what you could do is leave them like this, keep them in your stash, so it's just like having a masterboard ready cut, you see. But to me it's so much quicker to make and so much easier. But what we can do is we can glue these together to make a nice long strip, which we can then roll up. And I'm also going to put a little bit of sewing on there as well. So let's have a think. How do I want to glue this? I think I'll glue it with tacky glue. What have I got here? I've got this one. I think I need to cut the edge off. Okay, so this is Anita's PVA tacky glue, which is purchased from Amazon, and I'm gonna just pop this one on here. Now the reason why I am making this into a strip is because it's really nice to store, and they actually look rather pretty when they're finished. So I'm going to glue that on. It doesn't matter if it doesn't match the size exactly. But if I've got another one here that's a better size, I think what I've done there is I've made that one larger than all the rest. That's fine. Just going to pop that in the middle and let it sit for a second. Leaving the strip isn't essential, but it just means there's less bulk between each strip if you leave a little portion of it at the bottom. That's the only good thing about that. I'm running out of space now on my desk. I've got a little strip here. I'm going to pop that. The other good thing about having a strip is that it's really easy to sew. It's really quick. And that's the name of the game, I think, sometimes. When you're creating bases for things, you don't want to be spending loads of time making those bases. You want to be able to put things together really quickly when you've got a spare few minutes of your time. Okay, so I'm going to let that tacky glue dry. I'm going to pop these through my sewing machine, and then I will come back and well, actually what I'll do is I'll take you over to the sewing machine so you can have a look at me sewing, and then we'll come back and have a look at what it looks like. So I've got my machine on a simple running stitch, and I've got a very basic sewing machine, so there's not that many stitches on there anyway, so it makes life a lot simpler. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to start sewing the strips together. And I'm going to keep on going until I get to the end, and then I will just start and do the other side as well. So you get the picture here. Totally unnecessary to do this, but I think it does give a lovely finish. And then if you do make it into tags or belly bands, then you've got the sewing there ready and waiting for you, and you hardly have to do anything else to it. So I'm going to carry on and do this and meet you back at the craft desk. So here is my mini strip masterboard finished, and as you can see, I've just done some messy stitching all the way on the edge. I just think it makes it look finished, and then if I was to make a tag, so let's have a look at this. What size do we want the tag? If I cut it about there. Would be helpful if I cut it straight. Miss Howells. There we go. And all I need to do, chop off the edges. And I just need to finish off the sewing at the top there, and that's the tag done. I've got the signature I want to work in, and I've got this page here. As I've said previously, I usually add what I class as bling on the go when I'm journaling, but I don't want to leave it like that because it will bother me. So I've gathered some bits. I've got this masterboard, which is from a little roll, and a blank masterboard tag I cut out earlier. I've got to say that this kit, Nana Roses, is a delicate kit. And if I was making this for somebody or as part of my design team projects, I wouldn't be using such scrappy strips. But this is just my personal journal, and this is the style I like. And this is how I release my grungy neediness out, and then I can do more subtle feminine projects for the design team. I love this kit, and it's so soft and deserves some lace for sure. And I don't want Rachel to be too horrified at what I create with her kits. So I've got these that I can decorate, and I've pulled out some pieces from the kit that I've cut up, and I've got some fussy cut flowers, which I'll leave links for in the description box for the Etsy shops. I've also got some fabric and lace. I'm going to start off with the strip of masterboard, and I want to have a look at how much I need to make a pocket. So I'm measuring out how much of the masterboard I need to make the pocket, and I like to add corners to my pockets. Doesn't really matter which way I do the corners, as it's multi-directional. I'm going to do a little bit of inking up now, and then I'm going to see how it fits on the page before I glue it down. As well as sewing the signature quickly to secure it, I also like to make clusters directly on the page as well when I'm journaling, and then sewing them on once they are glued lightly to the edge, which also looks really effective. And of course you can do this when you've got loose signatures that haven't been bound. So I want to make this pocket look like it's from the kit. So I'm going to use some of the cuts that I've made from the masterboard versions of the kit that's available with RachandBella Crafts. I'm going to just rip a bit here and there and add to the pocket. And I also want to use some of the Fussy cut flowers, which go really nice with the Nano Roses kit, I think. Sometimes it's a bit hard to make a decision on which is the best one, but in the end I decide to go with the larger flower, and it's just a question of positioning it and making sure that it's in the best place on the pocket. I don't bother doing the finer part of the fussy cutting in the middle of the flower, as it's just for my own personal journal. But if this was a design team project or a journal for somebody else, then I obviously would go to the effort of making sure that I cut out all the white parts to the fussy cut. Just going to do a little bit of trimming on the side. Make sure it's nice and tidy. It is a shame to cut the petals off and the leaf, but I think it looks better in the end. Just need to do a little bit of distressing on the edge. And then I decide I'm going to use some fabric, and I opt for the pink cotton. Now, unfortunately, I do go off camera a little bit here, where I cut the fabric into a strip, add it to the lower part of the pocket, and then I decide to add another fussy cut. I did quite like the idea of using a photo on here, but it just didn't look right, so I opted just to go with another fussy cut flower instead. Once I've got everything ready, I decided that I wanted to sew the pocket onto the page. So here I am just making sure that it looks okay on the page, and then I'm going to lightly glue over the 3 edges just to secure it in place. I try not to put too much glue on there, so that I don't have to wait ages for it to dry, as I do get quite impatient when I want to get on with things. And at this point I do think about using a cluster, but honestly I think it would have spoilt the pocket. It looks quite vintage and nice as it is. I've got enough of the Nano Roses and I'm happy with how it looks. I'm back from the sewing machine and the pocket is now secure, and I don't mind the sewing on the other side. In fact, I quite like the messy look. It's just a simple pocket that covers the ugly letter heading that was there, and I've got a piece of masterboard left, so I'm thinking I could just slot it in the pocket. I don't want to cover the layers up as I like the background. Unfortunately, it's not looking very straight. And the more I try to cut it and straighten it up, the less I'll have left to use as a journaling card. So eventually I stop cutting and then round up the corners and do some inking. When working in my personal journal, I like to limit myself to a small amount of supplies so that I don't overdo or overthink things. I also like to decorate my journal in the evenings, sitting in front of the TV with a couple of scraps on my lap. I've got some scraps left here, so I'm going to use that piece on the masterboard. And I really like the torn look on the piece of scrap. I just want to give it a little bit of a distressing on the torn edge there. I think a little bit of lace and fabric will also work well on the journaling card. Just something subtle on the side there. And then perhaps another fussy cut to bring in the lovely pattern of the journaling kit in the background. I find it quite hard to cover up parts of the background, such as the lovely printed music paper there. But I've left a little piece underneath the fussy cut, just peeking out to remind me that it's still there. And that's the thing about collage, you do tend to cover up a lot of what you like, but the end result is always stunning. I'll tidy up the fabric a bit better once I've sewn around. So I'm going to pop back now to the sewing machine, give this journal card a little sewing all around the edge, and then I'll come back and we can have a look to see what the end result is. Here we are, a scrappy journaling card. And I know I've said it before, but it's quite grungy when looking at the lovely and pretty Nana's Roses digital kit. But I'm fine with it as it's my own personal use and it's what I've got. But Rachel might not be, of course, but she'll forgive me. And I've still got this tag here, so whilst I'm here, I may as well decorate it so that I can use it in the journal. I do use cards, I do use tags in the journal, so I've also got some neutral scraps, tiniest piece of background paper left that I can use, and some of the lace which is already cut up. I can maybe arrange it in some type of cluster and add a little bit of flower maybe. But I've got to try and figure out where best to place it all. In the end, I keep it on the side where it doesn't cover up too much of my favourite bits of the background. But I still fret over a couple of pieces of paper, even though it's scrap. I guess it's the hazards of junk journaling. I think about replacing the bling in the middle of the flower as it's only loosely attached and it will be too bulky for the journal. And I'm using my glue gun here because it does glue very well and I like to use it if I'm not going to sew any of my clusters. If you are going to use a glue gun, then only use it after you've done all your sewing. You don't want to put anything glued with a gun through your sewing machine. It won't be a happy ending for both of you, even when the glue is dry, as it bunches up on the needle and it's really quite gloopy. I've used dark thread as well on the tag, which does add to the grunginess, but that's what I had left in my machine, as I'm still working on journals for the Truly Blue kit by RachandBella Crafts, and I don't like swapping out the thread for different projects if I can help it. I purchased the gems from Amazon that I use in my flowers, and I've used them loads. They also come with a useful pencil to pick up the gems, but I can't find it right now, so my fingers are going to have to do. The gems come in quite a few different sizes, and they really are very pretty, and most are quite flat and useful then in your journal, so they don't affect it when you're trying to write on the page. There's nothing worse than having something sticking out the other side. And there we go. Here's a simple tag made purely from scraps, and I may add a little quote or something to the cluster a bit later on. And I'm well on the way to having a signature ready for me to write in next week. And if I get a chance, I'll add some photos to Instagram and come back in front of the camera with some more tips for making a quick journal. And really, this is the reason why I make journals. It's for me to write in every day. I hope you like this quick tutorial. Please like and comment if you have the time, as it does help with those algorithms. And thank you so much again for watching and supporting my channel.